Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the very first Health and Wealth. We're so happy to have you here this evening. I'm Damon King. I'm a certified financial planner professional and wealth management advisor with ChappelWood Financial. And I'm very happy that I'm co-hosting tonight's event. This is not just a ChappelWood event. My co-host this evening is Katie Owen. And Katie, I'm going to be quiet and I'm going to let you introduce yourself.
Well, thanks, Damon. I'm really excited to be here, and I'm excited to partner with you because what you have to offer is so important for my clients. And I've been helping people with insurance since 2003. And I love helping people understand something that is foreign to them, is confusing to them. And I love taking my clients from completely overwhelmed and stressed out to confident and relieved. And I do that through explaining things clearly, answering all their questions, and no pressure whatsoever. So love building relationships with my clients. And when I met Damon, I knew that we needed to work together because we both specialize in areas that our clients need us, and we're both helping a lot of the same people. So very excited to be here. Thank you for coordinating this.
Well, I'm very happy to, and same with you. Ladies and gentlemen, when I met Katie, we had the occasion to meet her. And just so you know, Katie and her company are based in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And of course, for those of you who are meeting me for the first time, ChappelWood Financial is in the Oklahoma City area, actually just north of Oklahoma City, in a suburb called Edmond. And when we met each other, we just clicked, and we realized our philosophies are very similar in teaching, educating, helping clients, helping you to make informed choices. And I have to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, I haven't met too many people who know as much about Medicare as Katie and her team do. So with that in mind, we're going to start with Katie tonight, and she's going to share a little bit. So Katie, I'm going to stop sharing my slides here, and I'm going to give control of the floor over to you.
Wonderful. So when I have people come to me and they are new to Medicare, they usually have a couple questions for me. And the first question is, do I have to begin Medicare when I turn 65? That's the number one question. So the answer actually is yes and no. It really depends on your situation. So the yes situations would be, maybe you have no health insurance in place right now, or maybe you have an individual plan through the marketplace. I just spoke to a lady earlier this week who's on a MediShare plan. Spoke to another gentleman last week who was on Cobra and thought that Cobra would last forever, or as long as he wanted it to, but I had to share with him that no, Cobra ends in most situations at 65. Or it could be that you have insurance through your employer, but your employer has less than 20 employees, and the insurance company is requiring you to enroll in A and B. So those are all the yes situations where you're turning 65 and yes, it's time to start. And by saying yes, what we're talking about is enrolling in Part A and Part B. So you have access to enroll in these 3 months before your 65th birthday, the month of your 65th birthday, and then up to 3 months after you turn 65 to incur no penalties. And that's actually the second question that my clients ask me about, is how do I avoid the penalties? And we're going to answer that tonight. Generally, if you enroll before the month of your 65th birthday, coverage will start the first of the month that you turn 65. Although you can enroll 3 months prior, it doesn't mean coverage begins 3 months prior. However, for those of you who are lucky enough to be born on the first of the month, your coverage actually will start the month prior to you turning 65, and it will start on the first of that month. So those are the yes situations. And again, when we're saying yes, enroll in Medicare, we're talking about enrolling initially in A and B. Okay, here are some of the no situations where you don't necessarily have to pull the trigger on Medicare when you turn 65. One no situation, which is quite common, is that you're still working and your employer offers you a plan that is considered creditable to Medicare standards. And what that means is it's considered at least as good as Medicare. It's actually a formal designation that's called creditable coverage. You might also be insured by a creditable plan through your spouse's employer. So they're still working, they've got access to, group medical, and you're covered there. It's important, if you're in this situation, to ask the company HR or the insurance carrier to provide you documentation proving that their coverage is creditable. I was very surprised a few years back to learn that a very large employer in the Dallas-Fort Worth area did not deem their coverage creditable to Medicare standards. And I thought, that's surprising, because they're a very large employer. They were with one of the big, insurance companies, but when it came to it being creditable, it wasn't. So just don't make the mistake of, well, I'm covered by a group plan, it must be okay. So if you're in a no situation, you still have some options. You actually can enroll in Part A and delay Part B. And that's a very specific option you can do when you go online with Social Security to enroll. Part A generally will cost you $0 premium to be on the plan. Now, you get that $0 premium because you or your spouse worked at least 10 years in our country, and so Medicare is a $0 premium cost for you. I'm not going to delve tonight into what Part A is or Part B, because at the end of the day, tonight's really about giving you some good information, but not really getting down into the weeds. But trust me, any question you might have, we can answer your question. Now, another reason why you might want to delay Part B is there's a cost to Part B. So this year in 22, the cost is $170.10 per month. And that surprises people. A lot of people thought Medicare was free, and it's not. And that $170.10 is actually based on your joint income if you're married, or your single income 2 years ago. So Social Security always does a 2-year look back. So it's important, to definitely talk to somebody like me, somebody like Damon, about, is it really time to pull the trigger on this based on your earnings 2 years ago? Or even more so, make sure you're having that conversation with Damon about what your earnings are before you're turning 65, so that you can mitigate any additional costs that you might have when you go to Medicare. There are other reasons to delay Part B, and I'm going to go into that in a little bit. But it is really smart to compare group benefits to your Medicare options. So even if you're in the no situation, I wouldn't necessarily just say, oh, okay, I'm not going to even look at Medicare until I retire, because it's possible that your plan actually isn't even as good as what you could get with Medicare. It's possible that the premiums you're paying in your group plan are higher than what you'd pay in Medicare. So you just want to work with a competent agent, someone who will look at all your options and ask you all the right questions, and then give you honest feedback. Because there are agents out there who will just force you into Medicare because you're 65, and that's not ethical, and that's not the way I run my business. So be sure you talk to somebody who's going to be honest with you. So let's talk about the enrollment rules, Medicare enrollment rules, and then the penalties that you want to avoid. So we have what's called late enrollment penalties. And in the Medicare world, there's lots of acronyms. You can imagine it's a government agency, so we call them LEPs. So you want to avoid the LEPs by first confirming that your employer plan is creditable. And then also, you either want to enroll during your initial enrollment period or during a special enrollment period. So your initial enrollment period, again, 3 months before you turn 65, your 65th birthday, 3 months after you turn 65. And then again, special enrollment periods. There's a number of situations available. The most common is when you leave your employer coverage. You know, after 65, you're now fully retiring, and then that's what we call a special enrollment period. And you need to do that in a certain time frame to avoid the penalties. So what I tell my clients is, you know, if we agree that their situation is such that it's not time to pull the trigger on Medicare, I'll always encourage them to, you know, contact me a few months before they retire so that we can, you know, time out exactly when they're going to enroll in Medicare and when we're going to transition them over. So again, there's no late enrollment penalties. So the Part B penalty, there's actually two major penalties. The Part B penalty is 10% per year that you were not enrolled. And it's based on the Part B premium for the year that you enroll. So just an example, if in 2022, you were assessed a 3-year penalty, it would be 1701 times 3 or 5103 per month penalty on your Part B forever. This is not a one-time penalty. This is a forever penalty. So it is important to keep an eye on these. And then the Part D penalties, it's 1% of the national premium average for every month you didn't have a creditable drug plan. So if the national average was $30, then the penalty's 30 cents a month. If you went 3 years or 36 months, then the penalty would be $10.80 on your Part D, and that's a forever penalty as well. Beyond the just straight out Medicare penalties, I just want to bring up one other thing to consider. There are other significant, albeit informal, penalties that you could incur if you don't make the right choice. So if you choose the wrong plan, for instance, a drug plan based on your neighbor told you that that was a good company, or your, you know, your hairstylist said this is the company to go with, that could be a very bad choice for you, because you could choose a plan with a really high premium. You could choose a plan that doesn't cover all your drugs. And then when you do need your prescriptions, you could be paying significantly more had you chosen another plan. With Medicare or Medigap supplement plans, there are a lot of different plans, a lot of different companies who offer plans. It's important to get that right. With Medicare Advantage plans, you can choose HMO, PPO. A good agent, if you choose Medicare Advantage, will look up all your doctors, all your hospitals, all your drugs, and help you make the determination to pick the right coverage. If you don't, you could be stuck in that plan for a while, and you could owe tens of thousands of dollars if you get it wrong. Also, if you enroll in Part B too soon, remember earlier I said you could enroll in A and delay B. If you enroll in B too soon, before you fully transition into Medicare, you might lose what we call a guarantee issue option for Medigap supplement. And again, not going to go into the weeds, but this is really important. This deal, having this guarantee issue option to get into a Medigap supplement when you start your Part B is really important. And again, could save you tens of thousands, if not more, money in the future if you did it wrong. And I've met people who did it wrong, and it's heartbreaking, to be quite honest. The other thing you could, the other bad thing you could do is assume that your retirement Medicare plan offered by your company is actually the best option. I've seen some great retirement plans, but I've seen some that are absolutely not great. The other thing you could do is just spend days and weeks and months trying to figure out this Medicare thing on your own. And, all you'd have to do is talk to somebody like me or somebody on my team who literally, we can give you a 30,000 foot level view on Medicare in under 15 minutes. So, you can save a lot of your life and stress by talking to somebody like us. Or I've run into people who just said, Medicare has been so overwhelming to me, I've done nothing. And then when I share with them, they're going to save $600 a month. Just had this happen a couple of weeks ago, saving a gentleman $600 a month. And he was so, I mean, he was so happy that he was going to now save $600 a month, but he was so mad at himself that he didn't do the homework. And he said, honestly, I was just overwhelmed. I just didn't want to make a decision. So I just, stayed the course with my employer plan, having no idea that a great option in Medicare could save him a lot of money. So, so that's kind of what you need to know about when you turn 65. And that's what you need to know about the penalties to avoid. And if there's anything I can do to help any of you or answer any of your questions, I might be in Texas, but actually I and a few of the agents on my team are fully licensed and certified to help folks in Oklahoma. And we actually have quite a few Oklahoma clients. So my contact information is on the screen. And Damon, I will turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Katie. I appreciate that. And just so you know, ladies and gentlemen, after I'm going to go through a few slides too. We are going to have time for Q&A tonight. And so if you've got questions at any point tonight, you can go ahead and start putting those in the Q&A. So you've got two options. You can either use the chat or the Q&A function down at the bottom of your screen. You should see a little toolbar down there. I think most of you know how Zoom works by now. We're a Zoom society by now, right, Katie?
Exactly.
And so if you've got a question, you want to go ahead and put in there. But do me a favor, if you would put for Katie or for Damon, that way we know who it's targeted to. And each one of us as a moderator can kind of take those questions. So go ahead, get your questions lined up right now. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Oh, you know what? I thought that I had it all ready to go here, but apparently I didn't. There we go. Okay. So you can all see that. So what I want to talk now about is how to avoid running out of money in retirement. And then how should you be investing? And you might think, really, you're going to, in 10 minutes, you're going to share how not to run out of money. It's really that simple. Okay. The mechanics of it are more complicated. And that's where we come in as advisors. And many of our clients on the call tonight would attest to this. But the concept is really what I want to talk about. All right. So when you think about retirement, really retirement can be boiled down, in my opinion, to one key activity, and that is cash flow management. For most of your life when you're working, it's about accumulating wealth. It's about building wealth, growth. All right. You are more aggressive in your 401k. You're more aggressive with your IRAs, things like that. You're trying to get your nest egg as big as you possibly can for the day when you decide to elect voluntary unemployment, which is retirement, right? And when you choose voluntary unemployment, you give up your paycheck and you know, I've got to have a big nest egg, big enough to fund the lifestyle I want. But then as you get into retirement, it's less about accumulation and growth and more about making sure that the amount of money I need to live my lifestyle every month shows up in my bank account. And to do that, you need to generate cash flow. And it becomes this game of managing cash flow. And you learn later as you go through retirement, and my clients discover this, and people that have come through my other classes finally discover this after a few years. Yeah, I care about what happens in the stock market, but I really care more about how much income is coming into my portfolio. So you have to generate cash flow if you want to stay retired. Anybody can retire. Staying retired and not having to go back to work is what people want to do. And the more cash flow you generate, and it doesn't have to be just from your portfolio, from your investments. The more cash flow you generate, the less likely it's going to be that you're going to run out of money in retirement, which is the number one fear that people have about retirement. And again, here's another statement that a lot of people disagree with me on, but I believe it, and my conviction is strong on this. When you get into retirement, generating income is so much more important than trying to beat the stock market. The news and everything you get, all these emails about hot stock tips and blah blah, all that stuff. That's sexy. It's fun to look at which stocks are beating the market and all this. And people like to brag about how much they make on the stock market. Although I wonder how many people brag this year about how much they lost in the stock market. See, nobody likes to talk about how much they lost. They just like to talk about how much they gain. But when you get into retirement, generating income so that you don't run out of money is a lot more important than trying to beat the stock market. Beating the stock market's hard. Generating income is not. So how do you avoid running out of money in retirement? Well, you need to change the way you think. Most people, when I teach a class, and especially if they're not clients of ChappelWood clients, pat yourselves on the back. You all already know this because you hear me, I beat you over the head with it all day, every day, right? If you're focused on trying to achieve a certain number in terms of how much should I have saved, in my opinion, that's backward. Okay, I want to save $1 million for retirement. Okay, well, why? How did you arrive at that number? Well, because the guy on TV said that I should save $1 million. Okay, well, $1 million in a place like Oklahoma or even Texas, where the cost of living, is a little lower, that $1 million might get you pretty far, depending on where you live. If you live in California, $1 million might buy you a 1,500 square foot house, right? So it's all relative. Instead, what you should be focused on is what is the gross monthly amount of income that needs to show up in my bank account every month to fund the lifestyle that I want to live. That's what you should be focused on. Once we know that number, then we can, and basically your annual income, then we can back into the number that you need to save, the amount of money you need to save. Because remember, not all of that income need is going to be dependent upon what you save for retirement. Some of that is going to come from other income sources like Social Security. Many of you have a pension, teacher retirement, something like that. There are quite a number of you on the call today that derive income from minerals, oil wells that you own. Maybe you have interest in a business. The point is, if you need $8,000 a month, once we know that number, now you can list the sources of income that are going to help to contribute to that number. And we need to know how long are they going to last. I was just visiting with a client yesterday, Marty, and when he retired from government work, he has a government pension, but he also received a little supplement. He retired at the age of 60, and for about 2 years, he had this supplement as a bridge to get him to Social Security. 62 is the earliest that you can, generally speaking, enroll and qualify for Social Security. Once he turned 62, that little supplement went away. We had to account for that so that we can make adjustments for his cash flow and other places. Once you know what all of those other income sources are that you will have, any gap between what you want and what you already have coming in is going to have to be filled by the money you have saved. And once you know how much your saved money needs to account for, that is when we can determine how much you need to have saved and, more specifically, how we invest that money. If you're trying to put an investment strategy together before you know what that money needs to do, that's backward. You don't want to do that. Okay, that's like taking a saw and say, you know what, I've got this saw. It's a very sharp saw, and I really love this saw, but I need to drive a nail. Great tool, inappropriate for the job necessary or the job at hand, right? It's the same with investments. You can have a great portfolio, a great stock portfolio, but if you need income and they're all growth-oriented stocks that live and die with the movements of the S&P 500, and they're not generating dividends for you, then they're still inappropriate, good as they may be, for what you are trying to accomplish. So that's how you avoid running out of money. Focus on how much money do you need to generate every month so that you can then make better decisions about how to invest your money. But let's say you know that. You now finally know, here's how much I need to show up in my bank account every month. Here's what's going to come from Social Security and pensions and the like. And here's how much needs to come from my investments. Now, what do I do with that money that goes into investments? How do I invest it specifically in retirement? The first thing you need to recognize is that as you move from your working life to retirement, you are probably going to de-risk. You're moving from accumulation of wealth to now preservation of wealth and income. from your wealth. And those are very different philosophies of investing. The other thing you need to remember is this, and we see people make this mistake a lot when it comes to, usually we see it with their 401k. Well, I've got my 401k and I just rolled it over into my IRA. So now I got $2 million sitting in this IRA. And, you know, I've got it all in, I've got one or two Vanguard funds, or I've got it in American funds, or whatever. Pick your favorite S&P 500 fund. Just because you've got all that money does not mean you need access to all of it immediately. In fact, nobody needs access to all of their money at any given point in retirement. In reality, you need some of it now and you need some of it later, right? It makes no sense to manage all of your money the exact same way because you don't need it all at the same time. We call it time segmentation. What you want to do, the way you want to invest, is you want to separate your nest egg into different buckets based upon when you need access to that money and using different kinds of assets in each bucket. The closer you are to needing that money, it stands to reason you want to be more conservative with it, right? The further away it is in terms of needing it, well, that's where you can afford to take on more risk. You're going for more growth. And I've been reminding all of my clients this year, this has been a rough year in the market, although I'm sure when you got your July statements, you felt a little bit better, right? They looked a lot better than June, right? Because the market has come up. It's gained back about half of what it's lost. But the point is this, most of those heavy losses, if you have a structured plan, conservative, moderate, and aggressive, near term, medium term, long term, it's that long term bucket that's probably taken the biggest beating because it's the most aggressive. But that's also the bucket of money that you don't need for quite some time, and you've got time to recover. You're probably always going to need some growth assets. I mean, unless you're 85, 90 years old, it's probably unlikely that you're just going to go ultra conservative. Or if if you've got $10 million with interest rates right now, I found some CDs out there. You could probably put $10 million in and generate a decent income, okay, decent return. You're always probably going to want some growth, but you also, in retirement, need some income generating assets in the early stages of your income plan. Because number one, you need usable cash flow, but income also helps to reduce risk. Why? If you're depending upon appreciation of your stocks in the stock market, well, that goes up and down like this, right? It's not very dependable. Income, a dividend, comes in at the same time every month or every quarter. When something is consistent, when something is dependable, you can count on it. It helps you sleep at night. It is less risky. And therefore, that is why we like to offset aggressive growth for the late stages of your income plan with more dependable, consistent, and less risky income in the early stages of your income plan. All right. And I did want to show you this. This is an example of how you might break apart a large account. In fact, I'm working with a client right now. He's going to retire in about 18 months. And we were having a conversation with he and his wife recently about, should we take this large IRA, it's just one IRA, and break it apart now into the component buckets? And we decided, no, it's probably a little too soon to do that. However, what we are doing is now starting to reposition the portfolio to de-risk slightly. We've reduced his exposure to growth stocks. We've increased his exposure to dividend stocks. We've baked in and built in some little strategies that when the market is doing well, that cash is exposed to stocks. When volatility goes up and the market's not doing well, then we sell off a lot of those positions and we raise cash. So it's a very tactical, very reactive strategy inside of the total. But this is an example of how you might break apart a large account. In this case, it's a $610,000 account. And you can see there are different phases here, and each phase is targeting a different rate of return. We're going to use it at a different stage through this person's retirement, and each bucket is using different assets. Phase one, cash and bonds. Phase two, bonds and dividend paying stocks. Phase three, dividend stocks, growth stocks. phase 4, max growth, just growth stocks. So that's how you invest in retirement, so that you've got the best of both worlds. Really 3 worlds. I've got my growth, I've got some protection, and I've got some income. All right. It's time for some questions. Katie, you ready to take some questions?
Yes, I am. In fact, I was going to go ahead and put my contact information in the chat for everybody, in case you didn't grab it off my final slide.
Okay.
I loved what you shared, Damon. That was awesome.
Well, yeah, and yours too. And you know, oh, you know what? And so those, ladies and gentlemen, in the chat, you'll see Katie's information there, and I'm going to share something in the chat. I just shared a link. If you are interested, you want a second opinion, so about your income plan. Obviously, if you're already a member of the ChappelWood family, you know where I'm at. You can get a hold of me anytime. But if you're not yet a member of the ChappelWood family and you want to examine looking at that structured approach to income planning, I put my link in there. You can click that link, or you can share it with somebody, and they can schedule online a 30-minute phone call. We'll get on the phone, discover how we might best help, and then schedule an appointment. But we do have a question that came in here. This is a question for Katie, and this is from our clients, Doug and Jennifer. Katie, my wife and I are in our late 40s. There are things we are doing now to prepare for retirement. Is there an equivalent of needing to do something to prepare for Medicare? Anything we should be doing now in our late 40s or in the future prior to hitting that magic Medicare age?
I love it. Doug and Jennifer, that magic Medicare age. You know, if nothing else, I would keep my contact information, and I would just know that you have an incredible resource when that time comes. There's really nothing to do now, late 40s through your 50s. When you're getting into your early 60s, that really is the time you need to be working with Damon to be very strategic on when you're taking certain, cash payouts from investments or whatnot, because what you do the 2 years with your income prior to hitting 65 or prior to retiring, if you choose to retire after 65, that will directly impact what you pay for your Part B as in boy and D as in drug. And the government, they have this little thing called IRMA, and it might not sound scary, but it's an income related monthly adjustment amount, which basically means if you are a high income earner, you will pay more for your Part B and D than people who are lower income earners. So I was just talking to somebody yesterday who said, oh my gosh, I took a major payout from one of my investments and now I'm getting hit with IRMA. And he was just frustrated because he had no idea that that would happen to him. So that's definitely a conversation you want to have with Damon. I would say have the conversation starting around 60 as you guys look forward the next 5 to 10 years, how long you're going to be working, and then when you're going to be cashing out investments. That's a great question. Thank you.
It really is. And, that's the thing, is that people think, well, Medicare, especially if you're in your 40s, even 50s, people think, Medicare, that's a long way away. No, there are considerations for those years leading up to Medicare. And another one, Katie, that we run into a lot, and so maybe you have some insight into this. I just met with a client, Pam, this week, and she's going to retire at 62. Well, at 62, obviously, she does not qualify for Medicare. Now, she is going to continue to have health insurance from her husband, and so she is going to have that bridge that for medical insurance, but she's going to lose her vision and dental. And so what do you do in terms of helping your clients maybe bridge from those few years when maybe they retire and lose their employer coverage until they can qualify for Medicare?
Sure. So we definitely have policies like dental, vision, and hearing that we can help anybody with, whether they're Medicare age or younger. And so we do have specific policies that can help bridge that gap. We also have strategic partnerships in place with insurance agents who really specialize in that under 65 market. And so we would, if we weren't personally doing it at that point, we would refer you to one of our strategic partners that we fully trusted to, you know, do the right thing, find the right plan, find the best rates. And I know I've got a few people in my back pocket that help my clients with that, and so do the people on my team. So there are things you can do to bridge that gap.
And we've got Angela, and she raised her hand. Now, Angela, I'm going to try to do something here. I can allow you to talk if you would like to. If you've got a question, I'm going to allow you to talk, and if you've got a mic, so go ahead. Oh, she's muted right now.
I think.
Oh, there you are. Can you hear it?
Yeah, I can hear. Can you hear me?
Yes. So Angela,
cool.
you're live. Go ahead and ask your question. It's good to see you.
Thank you. So I came in late because I forgot. So did I miss, was the first part of the discussion on when you have to sign up for Medicare and all that? Did I miss all that?
It did. It was. But guess what? You can ask now. So go right ahead.
Well, yeah. So I'll be 65 in a week or so. When do I have to sign up? Do I not have to sign up?
That's great, Angela. That is just a perfect question. This is Katie Owen, and I'm the gal on the call that lives and breathes Medicare. So the answer to that question, Angela, is really based on your certain situation. If you are currently still working or your spouse is working and you're covered under a group medical plan, that would be the first question. And then if the answer is yes, then we need to just determine if that plan is creditable to Medicare standards. And if it is, then you actually don't have to do anything right away, unless you or your spouse work for the company where you have your health insurance and there are less than 20 employees. Then you might be in a situation where, although you are covered by group medical, they are forcing you to enroll in Medicare. But I would be delighted to have a chat with you offline and just to kind of delve into your situation on whether or not now is the right time to pull the trigger on Medicare. You may or may not need to.
Okay, awesome. Yeah.
And my contact information is in the chat. Are you able to access the chat?
When I tried to do that, I got somewhere that I didn't want to be.
Yeah, you should see a little toolbar down, I think at the bottom of your screen, Angela, and there should be a little chat box. And if you click that, you'll see Katie's information in there.
Is it the Calendly.com?
No, that's my link. Hers is both above and now below that. So she's put it in there. I don't know if you can see that. You might need to change. You see down, there's a little drop down box there. It says,
oh, you're absolutely right.
Yeah, it might have my name checked. So if you check everyone.
Oh, you know what? I don't have that option. And actually, Candace told me she doesn't have the option either. She can only send chat to you.
Okay. I tell you what we'll do is after this is over, we're recording this first of all. So Angela, you'll get the slides, you'll get this whole presentation, as will everyone. But we can also, Katie, what do you think? We'll just share our information to everybody, and if they want to reach out to you, that they can.
Yeah, that's perfect. In fact, if you want, I could share my screen and just put my final slide up on while we see if anybody else has any other questions.
Yeah, actually, there was another question, I think, that came through. Somebody else raised, well, they did there for a second. Thanks, Angela, for that question. I'm going to put you back on mute. Let's see. Somebody else raised their hand. I thought that I saw another raised hand. So if you want to actually speak, you can, or you can type your question in the Q&A or chat. And if you want to speak, just raise your hand and I can allow you to talk if you would like to go live on the thing tonight, on the show tonight. You know, Katie, one of the things that I'm kind of curious about is this new Inflation Protection Act and the Medicare provisions that are a part of it. And one of those provisions was putting a cap on annual out-of-pocket expenses for drugs and capping it at $2,000. What do you think about that? And do you think, I mean, how is that going to be actually phased in?
The $1,000,000 question.
You notice I asked you that question, so I didn't have to answer it.
No, no worries. Yes, we are aware of that. And if in fact it becomes a thing, because I've also heard that it could become a thing, but it's not 100% yet. I will say one thing: we've been given zero direction from Medicare on this. However, from experience, oh my word, if this seriously goes into play, this is going to help so many people. This will help millions of people. You know, I have clients who take 20 prescriptions a month, and they spend over $10,000 a year on prescriptions. In fact, I was saying earlier, you know, we compare if you're on a group medical plan and whether or not it's time to shift into Medicare. I'm working with a couple right now. They will absolutely save money to shift into Medicare, but the husband is on some very expensive drugs that are treated differently in Medicare. And that's another mistake people make, is they say, well, my drug is only $1 when I fill it under my group plan. It'll probably be cheap in Medicare. You don't want to make that assumption, because drugs are handled completely different in Medicare. Another poor assumption is, well, I'm on a Blue Cross plan and all my doctors are on my plan, my group plan. I'll just get Blue Cross when I go into Medicare. That's a bad assumption, because the Medicare network is completely different from the group medical network. So I kind of went down another road there, but it's very exciting if this truly becomes law and becomes a thing, because it will absolutely help, probably honestly, millions of people who are in Medicare. And in fact, it was, you know, in the last couple of years, they did the senior savings program for insulin, you know, where carriers will come out with one of their, you know, plans, one of their drug plans that has that senior savings program. And it is so welcome by people who have diabetes and are on insulin. It really cut down their costs as well. So it'll be interesting to see if this really, you know, does move forward and does become, you know, law. It'll be really interesting. It'll help a lot of people if it does.
Absolutely. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we've got time for probably just one more question. So do we have one more question, whether you want to type it in the Q&A or the chat for Katie or for me, or if you want to raise your hand, you can talk right here on the show tonight. Any other questions from anybody this evening? We've stunned them into silence.
Well, this has been so much fun. Thank you everybody for coming, and thank you for your thoughtful questions. And anything I can do to answer questions after tonight, please don't hesitate to reach out. There's no obligation when you talk to me. There's no cost just to have a conversation with me, and I'd be delighted to talk to you. And Damon, I'm excited to introduce you to my clients, because I think everybody needs a solid financial plan. And, you know, to the question earlier, I think it was Doug and Jennifer, oh my gosh, it's so good that you're working with Damon in your 40s, you know, and not waiting until 50 or 60 to figure out your retirement. So, so thank you.
Well, and if I may speak for Doug and Jennifer, since they can't speak for themselves right now, you know, one of the reasons why they joined the ChappelWood family is the same reason that a lot of people joined us, and it was because of the educational component. Many of the ChappelWood clients on the call tonight joined us, but it started with a class. They attended a class, and I know you believe in education. So do I. You can't make good decisions unless someone's willing to tell you how this stuff works. And, you know, to me, it's not enough that you know what that you know what is happening with your money. You need to know why it's happening. Okay. You don't need to know all the ins and outs. You know, my dad always said, look, just tell me what time it is. Don't tell me how the watch is made. Okay. But I believe in education big time. And, you know, that was one of the reasons why Doug and Jennifer joined us and why so many of our others. And I echo what Katie said. If you are looking for a financial planner, I'm a certified financial planner. We do much more than just investments. We counsel our clients on a variety of topics. Social Security, Medicare, taxes is a big thing. Estate planning, dealing with your trust, your will, that sort of thing, leaving a legacy, dealing with long-term care, those kinds of things. So we delve into everything, and we are able to bring to the table. We've got partners across the country like Katie. I certainly don't know everything about Medicare. That's why, Katie, I'm going to call you when I've got a Medicare question, because I don't always know what I'm talking about. So, you know, it doesn't look like we have any other questions tonight. So we want to say thank you so much for joining us. We hope that you enjoyed this brief but very informative presentation. You will receive the recording of this. Katie, I'll share it with you, and you can share it out to your clients. And of course, for the ChappelWood clients, you'll receive it as well. Katie, any final thoughts for the evening before we sign off?
Well, you know, it's important to talk to somebody about Medicare and not try to figure it out on your own. Save yourself the headache, save yourself hours. Just give us a call. We are more than happy to help. And I had a great time tonight. Thank you.
I did too. Let's do it again.
Agreed. Let's do it.
All right. All right, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Go spend some time with your family. I hope you have a great dinner lined up if you haven't already eaten. Enjoy your Friday. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you again next time. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.